I've done things for Maryland. I've represented those districts, both Sarah Alfred's district in Anne Arundel County, Johnny O's district up in Baltimore County. Represented all of it.
All right, Andy Harris.
Game on.
Game on.
At the end of the week, Washington empties out fast. Lawmakers, staffers, they're all heading home. But not before they stop here.
Hello and welcome back to the Punchbowl News Townhouse. I'm Anna Palmer and we are here for another episode of Flyout Day.
And I'm Jake Sherman.
The House and Senate are back from recess this week and it has been a...
Are they ever?
whirlwind. Several notable mentions this week. We reported, of course, on the death of Senator Lindsey Graham, the fraught battles over the NDAA, and of course, Speaker Mike Johnson trying to push through Reconciliation 3.0.
Not only is he going to try to push through Reconciliation 3.0, Anna, he is... that is expected. The budget resolution is expected to be on the floor next week. A huge $90-something billion budget resolution, which would theoretically, if the Senate could get it through, give Republicans a chance to put together a bill that would give more money to the Pentagon, theoretically put elements of the SAVE Act in place, do some stuff for farmers, farmer aid. And not only is that on the floor next week, the NDAA is on the floor next week. A stock trading ban with voter ID is on the floor next week. They're going to do a government funding bill next week. It is just, this is the last week in session next week before the August recess, and goodness gracious, is it jammed.
Our guest in the Townhouse today is an influential House Republican chair of the House Freedom Caucus, Maryland Representative Andy Harris, who's in the middle of it all, Jake.
That's an understatement. They're in the middle of literally every debate. With varying effects, let's say, a debate to debate, but the Freedom Caucus has been a powerhouse in the House since its inception back more than 10 years ago. They don't control every debate, but they put their finger on the scale no matter what the debate is.
After our interview with Mr. Harris, we have Semafor Congressional reporter Nicholas Wu, as well as our very own Punchbowl News co-founder John Bresnahan, joining us for the panel to break it all down. We are going to get right to Representative Harris, but first, a quick word from our presenting sponsor, Boeing.
Presented by Boeing. As America celebrates 250 years, Boeing honors a shared journey of ingenuity. Today, that legacy powers 1.4 million jobs across all 50 states. That's how Boeing backs America.
Representative Andy Harris, Republican of Maryland and the chair of the House Freedom Caucus, welcome to Flyout Day.
Good to be with you.
All right, so there are two issues that are dominating House politics right now. You are in the middle of both of them, Reconciliation 3.0 and immigration. I want to start with Reconciliation 3.0. The House Budget Committee is marking up a roughly $90 billion budget resolution today that would send upwards of $70 billion to the Pentagon. Not a single pay for as part of that. Is that something you can support?
Well, it's going to include the Save America Act. We think by the final product may actually help avoid a shutdown. Would like to include a little shutdown funding in it to avoid that. So yeah, if we avoid a shutdown and we get Save America, yeah, that price tag's all right.
It is. So you think, okay, so you're going to vote on a CR next week, theoretically in the House.
No, well, yeah, but that'll probably be rejected by the Senate. I'm talking about putting things in reconciliation that fund things like TSA, FAA, military pay for 2 months, just the way we did ICE and CBP, because the Democrats are going to want to shut down the government. So we can put things in reconciliation, keep the critical parts of the government that the Democrats want leverage over us in a shutdown. Put it in reconciliation for a couple months and let's go. Let's have the election.
So critical functions.
Through the election, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So critical functions.
Yeah, remove all the leverage the Democrats think they have by forcing a shutdown.
And that you add in the House, or
could be anywhere along the way.
Okay.
This has a long path. This is not getting out of the Senate till September. And you can literally, we could probably, by amending things, we have a while to figure that out.
I mean, I think September's a little aggressive. I mean, it might not end up out of the Senate for longer than that, right? I mean, we'll see how they handle.
No, there's no way it gets to the Senate before the end of next week. Just
the resolution, right?
Yeah, the instructions,
right?
And then the Senate, I think, is in for another week. I think
2 or 3 weeks.
Are they into August?
Yes, I think they're in the first week of August. Yeah,
good.
How about that? huh?
Yeah, they're finally going to do some work. It's good. But we don't get back till September. So the final product will be worked out in September. By then, I think we will have an idea whether the Democrats are in fact going to attempt to shut the government down. We will, I think the leadership is going to move a CR
Next week.
So let's see. I mean, the Democrats want to shut it down. We have a vehicle to, again, remove all the leverage and reconciliation.
It's smart. That's interesting. And that's something that you guys have been pushing for a long time. Shut down kind of, yeah. Okay, key to this legislation, as you mentioned, is the Save America Act, which you guys have been pushing for a long time. House admin has $10 billion, which is a decent chunk of change for that to craft provisions, save provisions. The Senate has said it can't accept the whole bill. I know you guys don't like that, but there are opponents to mail-in ballots, et cetera.
Well, mail-in ballots are not part of what we're putting in.
No, but
We're putting in Save America.
right. But the
House product.
okay, but so what in your view needs to be in this
It needs to
legislation?
have voter ID, and look, it's the 80% issues. 80% of Americans think you ought to be able to show a voter ID. We know that because in the majority of states you have to show a voter ID, and that you should have proof of citizenship before you register to vote. In Maryland, look, you go to the DMV, and we issue a driver's license to aliens. There's a screen in English that asks if you want to register to vote. Well, if you're not really good in English, you're just going to press yes, and boom, you're registered to vote. That's totally unacceptable. We have to do the same thing we did for real ID. You show real identification and make sure that only American citizens are voting. Again, an 80% issue.
Let me ask you, what mechanism do you prefer? Because how you do this is as important as if you do it, right? How you structure it. There's been talk of doing a grant program to states that they get money if they put these in place. How do you think it should be structured?
It should be structured the way Save America is. The states have to do it. That you have to we're doing belts and suspenders because we already have in the law that you have to be an American citizen to vote. It's just that states are not enforcing it in any way, shape, or form, and we know that because we had a guy in Prince George's County who went to Iowa to be like a superintendent of schools who was here illegally and registered to vote in Prince George's County. In fact, when we pursued the investigation, Prince George's County redacted the information on the voter registration form whether or not he had checked off the box he was a citizen. Sure enough, it hadn't been checked off. They basically knowingly registered someone who basically said they weren't a citizen.
So how do you think like they should force all the states? Is what you're saying? I mean, there's a carrot and a stick approach here.
There are actually penalties in the law now. I mean, you have to penalize states for not complying
Through funds.
Through funds or criminal action. I mean, if an attorney general in a state or usually secretaries of state who are in charge, if they knowingly and willingly register people who are here illegally or who are not American citizens, no, you prosecute them. This is the deal between states and the federal government. Is there are elements of the federal government that are ascribed to these federal governments, such as immigration, such as federal voting. I mean, it's in the Constitution.
Yep.
Congress has the ability to say who votes and how federal elections are carried out. States implement it, Congress does. Look, that's the deal. If you're unwilling to do that, then form your own country, leave the United States, and really secede from the Union. If you're not willing to follow the original constitutional deal between states and the federal government. So a state saying we are not going to agree with enforcement of immigration, which I know you're going to get to. All right,
We are.
the
Don't
enforcement
worry.
of immigration. I'm sorry, go and form your own country because the Constitution is pretty clear. Federal government is in charge of enforcing our borders and immigration policy. You don't agree with that? The deal is off. Go. You can provide your own Medicare, Social Security, Medicaid, all the things that the federal government does. You're on your own because you want a one-sided deal. You want the federal government to do everything for you, and then you don't want to do what states are obligated to do for the federal government.
So you're obviously in the House. The House has a strategy that Speaker Mike Johnson is going forward with. In the Senate, you've got John Thune. He is a skeptic of the whole process. He says that he will have a tough time getting 51 votes for any reconciliation bill. What do you think of John Thune?
He'll get 51 votes on the reconciliation bill. Look, human nature is you really don't want to do what you don't want to do. But in the end, we have to show up for work. We have to do things. We have to pay our mortgage. We don't want to pay the mortgage. We don't want to pay our car payment, but you actually have to do it. Well, John Thune is going to have to muster the votes to get reconciliation through. It's just that simple.
Why is it just
And he's
that
a
simple?
leader. Because he's the leader. That's what the speaker's doing in the House. The speaker is with a majority, I guess by percentage, even smaller than the Senate's majority. He's able to do it in the House. The Johnson can do it in the Senate.
What do you think if the parliamentarian scraps this and says, forget it, you can't do it? Unsafe. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, the parliamentarian is only an advisor to the chairs. I don't know. Look, I don't know Senate rules and whatever, but if you structure it where a vast majority of this is budgetary and a small piece is policy, hopefully, the parliamentarian makes the right decision. If not, they'll figure it out in the Senate. We're just going to get them the product.
Yeah, and that's all you can.
And that's
do,
your
right?
job. I mean,
Right.
Okay, let's talk immigration. Mike Johnson promised some of your colleagues in the Freedom Caucus a vote by the July 4th recess on codifying the president's immigration policy. Didn't happen, obviously, which has led to several of your members gumming up the House floor, a power that you guys have used quite effectively over the last decade or so. Judiciary is going to mark up an immigration bill next week. What do you need to see in that bill?
We need to have the border secured. I mean, that's the bare minimum. That's what America wants. Again, Joe Biden said for some reason you can't enforce you can't close the border. Obviously, you can't close the border. It's whether the president's willing to do it. This president was willing to do it. We have to make sure that the subsequent president who really doesn't want to close the border is forced by law to have a secure border. So the border security issues are important. We will, you take HR 2 as kind of the menu from which you select.
The immigration bill from last Congress.
That's right, from the 118th that passed the House. It doesn't have to be the same, but the border elements should be included in this bill.
How do you respond to critics who say there are a lot of moderates who don't want to vote for this right now? There isn't a border crisis. Trump has been successful. Yep. And that these moderates are actually the majority makers for your party.
Yeah, it's not true. I mean, we have a very broad consensus in the Republican conference that if it deals only with border, I'm not talking about interior enforcement, I'm talking about the border, we're going to be able to pass a border.
And that's what you're comfortable with, just the border.
Just the border. That's what Americans want that border secure, because everything else is downstream. If you are securing your border, honestly, why do you need an interior enforcement if your border is secure? Right? You're at airports, you're securing the visas, you're making sure the visa, visa overstays, you're always going to have to do interior enforcement, but a visa overstay is not border enforcement. Border is like southern border, northern border, ports of entry, they have to be secure.
So no E-Verify, you don't want E-Verify in this?
We don't need E-Verify.
Okay, let's talk about the HFC, which you've chaired since 2024. When it started, it's kind of morphed in purpose over the since its inception. The goal was that when it started, just as kind of a strict adherence to the House rules. You were here during that time period, as was I, covering it. What is the HFC's role today in your estimation?
So look, the HFC's role changes depending upon whether we're in the majority, we're in the minority. If we're in the majority, how far we're in the majority, right? I mean, structurally, when you have a group where at least 10 of us, maybe a dozen out of the group will be willing to stand up and say, ooh, this isn't good enough, right? We this needs a little more work. That's a different role from the majority. When we're 30 in the majority. It's a different role, and obviously a different role in the minority. And we have been in all those circumstances. So it's not that the group has changed; it's how the group interacts with the current Republicans in the House, whether you're majority or minority, and it's a different function. So, as a chair, my philosophy is different from if I were in the minority. In the majority, I actually have the ability to guide this group to get a bill across the finish line. You can't do that in the minority. You're just the bomb throwers, I mean, you're the backbenchers. So it would be a different role if we were in the minority, or if we were in a very large majority, which, because of the way redistricting is done now, I don't think either party is ever going to have a very large majority anymore. They're too good at straddling the middle. And I read an article probably 15 years ago about how presidential elections will never be blowouts, because you will structure your campaign, whether you're president or U.S. senator or member of Congress, you'll structure your campaign to get just far enough away from where your base would be to win that election. And if you're in a heavily Republican district like mine, you don't have to get that far. But if you're in a country that is almost evenly divided, you have to get a little further. And the ability to do that has been perfected. So I just think elections will be close from now on.
I
So
agree with
let's talk about the relationship with Mike Johnson. The HFC has a rich history of, as you said, depending on where the majority lies, a minority, pressing speakers to be more conservative often. How do you judge Mike Johnson right now?
Look, Mike Johnson's a conservative. We're helping Mike Johnson be a conservative. That's all.
Are you pushing him to the right, though? Are you? I mean, as you try to lead.
Well, I don't have to push Mike Johnson to the right because he's a conservative, but we do have to bring the conference over to where we believe most of them have gone on the campaign trail and campaigned on. And we just continually remind them that this is actually what you campaigned on. You just bring it to fruition.
Jim Jordan always says, what does he say? Do it when you get here, you got to do what you said when you were at home and campaigning for it.
That's right.
Do you think Republicans are going to keep the majority?
I'd say it's toss up now. I don't know. You tell me what the price of gas is on November 1st. I will, tell you where I think is. It is. Look, people do feel pressure. There's no question about it. We had a bout of inflation during the Biden administration. And I think what people don't realize, because it's been a while since we had, look, I'm old enough to have known 15% inflation.
Correct.
Mhm.
Right.
A lot of people haven't. They think inflation should be 0, 1, or 2. And when you're at that level, when you have a sudden increase, human nature is, this is going to come back down. No, prices never come back down. That's not the way inflation works, because that's called deflation. We haven't had deflation in this country since the Depression. So there is, America is just getting used to that bump that we had in the Biden administration. Obviously inflation numbers last week or earlier this week, it all blends. We're pretty good. If we can control the price of gas and we can control the price of energy and fuel, we'll be in a low inflation environment. But look, I don't know. Hey, tell me what it's like in November.
Yeah.
Do you believe if you do keep the majority, do you want Johnson to be speaker again?
Yeah, I think he will have proven that, first of all, he can do all the things that the speaker needs to do to keep the majority. And I think he's been very good at handling this is a very narrow majority. And the successes have, given that, they've been stunning. I mean, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, one big beautiful bill, reconciliation one, whatever you want to call it. That's a pretty major achievement in a very because I was there as you were for the entire journey. To have been able to end up there is a pretty remarkable feat.
And how about if he loses the majority? Should he be minority leader?
I don't know. I mean, you tell me by how much, you tell me what the price of gas was, you tell me if we're still in Iran. I mean, there are external influences over which he has little control.
I want to circle back quickly just to government funding. If it's a clean CR next week, your guys are cool with that, in my estimation?
We know that the alternative to a clean CR is something that could be much worse. Yeah. Whereas historically the Freedom Caucus has not supported, say, like if you go back 10 years, my point even 10 years ago was, you tell me the environment, I'll tell you whether I'm for a CR. Clearly, when the Democrats were in charge and spending was escalating, I'm always for a CR because a CR is at a lower spending level.
But you don't like CRs because you're an appropriator. You like your earmarks.
Yeah, but
you've been outspoken on that issue.
We've only done 1 year where we've gone the whole year without, under a CR.
Yeah.
I don't think that's going to be duplicated again for the exact reason you point out. And I will say, look, I vote against the earmarks in the conference, but if we're going to have earmarks, I have submitted earmarks. I think that.
Yeah, it wasn't a criticism of you. I was just saying, it's.
But look, if we don't have them, I'm fine with that too.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's some members who are not fine with that. Right. And that means that you don't want to see our year long.
Yeah. One last question before we let you run. I want to talk about redistricting. Yeah. The legislature in your state of Maryland will convene this summer to consider redistricting you basically out of a seat.
Not you basically. You're the only Republican
You're the only
left.
Republican left in the delegation. How worried are you?
Look, what I'm concerned about is that the way it's structured is they obviously couldn't redistrict this time. They knew they were going to lose in court. We have a Maryland constitutional case that we won in 2021 and 2022. So what they're going to do is they're going to change the Constitution.
Correct.
And this is kind of interesting because what they're going to do is they're going to set up a double standard for redistricting. For state legislative districts, they have to be compact, respect common interest, have respecting geographical jurisdictional boundaries. Probably the way redistricting ought to be done. Oh, but for Congress, those rules don't apply. That looks, I don't know, to the average person, that should be a little strange. Like the legislature thinks when you redistrict us, because they're voting on it, we think it ought to be one set of standards. When you redistrict Congress, it ought to be another set.
And it's after you. I mean, this is all because of you.
It's transparent to everybody what's going on here. And the question is whether or not the citizens of Maryland will look at that and go, that's probably a step too far. Like try to redistrict, draw the district lines, but the governor, the most interesting thing the governor said was that my district is the most gerrymandered one in Maryland.
It's not really.
This is pretty stunning because the way my district is drawn, you start at the Virginia border, you go up the Eastern Shore and go over the bay until you hit the number of people and you stop right there. Like literally, it's like,
It's quite compact. It just runs up the peninsula.
it's a rural area.
Right.
Rural areas are never going to be this compact.
Right.
So it just goes and then it stops right when you hit it. And it's funny because I represented that part of the district before. I lived in near that part of the district before. I'm like, why did they draw this line? Like, oh, they went up and they just stopped.
At 600,000 or whatever it is.
730 or whatever it is in Maryland. Exactly. And they just stopped. That's exactly the way you should draw districts. You should start at in the southern Maryland, start at the southern tip, just go up like a mushroom up and boom, you stop when you hit that number. And then the next one goes up and stops. Representing.
Is this going to be an end in court in litigation? Or
Of course. We'll litigate it all the way. I mean, you start litigation right from the way they word the ballot, because normally, and there was just a case in Massachusetts, they had a tax issue on the ballot or something. They just, the courts threw it out. They're like, yeah, this is not explained right on the ballot. Yeah, if you challenge the ballot wording, and then you go from there. In Maryland, in 2021, 2022, there were two reasons the judge overturned the map at that point. One was the fact that they said, yeah, you ought to follow the state legislative rules because you're silent on congressional. You probably ought to have a uniform standard. Actually sounds pretty reasonable. The other one is that the Maryland Declaration of Rights guarantees a freedom of speech. And when you draw a district based on someone's political speech, which is your vote, you're actually biasing against someone's speech. And the only reason I think the Supreme Court didn't rule that way is the Supreme Court's like, the states are in charge. But our state constitution has a freedom of speech clause. We will take this case on the freedom of speech clause. What you're doing is you're saying, if you vote Republican, we're going to bias against you. We're going to make sure you don't have a representative. Wow. Okay. That's actually pretty powerful.
Because there's no other case to draw you out of your seat besides that. I mean, there's no other demographic case or anything. Yeah.
Yeah. They're correct. This has one purpose. Everybody gets it.
Right.
It's like the worst kept secret. It's to draw him out of your district.
And we have to go after this. But I mean, the Democrats, a lot of House Democrats are not in Maryland, have been skeptical about it and have.
Of course, they got. First of all, I represented all the areas that they potentially could draw me into. I've represented before. I'll run in a district that's a D+4, D+5, D+10 that I've represented before. Let's go. I'm ready. I've brought things. I've done things from Maryland. I've represented those districts well. When I represented those districts, both Sarah Alfred's district in Anne Arundel County, Johnny O's district up in Baltimore County, represented all of it.
All right, Andy Harris.
Game on.
Game on. We heard it here first. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Presented by Boeing. As America celebrates its 250th anniversary, Boeing honors a shared journey of ingenuity. For over a century, Boeing has helped put our nation in the air and in space, from the golden age of flight to the final frontier. Today, that legacy powers 1.4 million American jobs and connects 10,000 suppliers across all 50 states. That's how Boeing backs America.
All right, we are back with our panel, our very own John Bresnahan, a co-founder of Punchbowl News, Nicholas Wu of Semafor, congressional reporter. That was a great interview by Andy Harris.
Yeah, it was really, he's very good explaining the positions of HFC. I think we've seen previous HFC chairs who are not quite as comfortable talking about all this stuff with the press.
Bob Good is
Bob
one.
Good is one. Chair Boy was good, but
she wasn't the chair. But Bob Good actually hated
Bob
the press.
Good was right. He didn't. That's right. So, but I thought he was. I thought he was very interesting. The shutdown stuff was very interesting to me. The Johnson stuff was very interesting to me. Non-committal as a minority leader. I think he's totally right. If the Republicans hold the House, Johnson's speaker again, but he's non-committal minority leader. And I thought the voter ID stuff is very interesting. How he talked about the elections. He's like, they don't want to do it, secede from the union, from your own country, so.
My take, though, I thought was interesting is he was not so often. I felt like the origination of HFC was letting like kind of perfect be the enemy of the good, right? Like he is willing to, and I think understands a position being in the majority, in the tight majority, say like, we don't need E-Verify, Jake. We don't need to, he's not going to push on some of these things. He's willing to just do border when it comes to some of this immigration stuff.
Yeah, I'm still kind of absorbing that and thinking about it. I think that it is. We'll see, because that might not be enough for some people.
I'm not saying for everybody, but I thought it was an interesting. Sure. I think his positioning as leadership,
he doesn't want it all.
Yeah, but it did just been a problem with Congress.
Yeah, but it's also kind of a reflection of his district. It's like rural farmland, a lot of migrant labor for crab fishing and the like, and that depends on somewhat more less restrictive restrictions than a lot of HFC might otherwise want.
Yeah, it's a good point, Nick. I mean, here's what I found the most interesting of the whole thing. He says that reconciliation should include some provisions that take various government funding, that fund various government agencies in the case of a shutdown. He mentioned TSA,
military pay,
months. It's actually not. First of all, it's not a crazy idea, and it's a smart political idea. Why is it a smart political idea? It's a party line bill. So you don't have to get Democratic support, and it does lessen the pain of a shutdown, which I don't know. We'll see if the government shuts down. We're not that far away. What are we, 2 months away? 2 months and a week away. You don't think there's a shutdown, but you've been wobbling on it.
September 30th, but it's 5 weeks before an election. Who does it benefit? I guess, but listen, I've got yelled at by some Democrats yesterday as like the shutdowns, what happened in the shutdowns last year and in this year changed the dynamic. Democrats are not afraid of a shutdown, and Republicans would be, if they can bait Democrats into a shutdown or what they say is bait, they feel good about it. It changes the dynamic, puts the pressure on Democrats. I mean, like, this is insanity to me that you'd have an election year shutdown.
Nick, what do you think?
I mean, I think the incentives are for Democrats not to support government funding for the same reasons that we saw, previously. Like, ICE, is still highly controversial. We had more killings by officer involved shootings by ICE, and that has and the reforms that Democrats wanted have not necessarily materialized. And so, like, why would they support?
But remember, ICE is funded.
Are you going to filibuster a CR? Are you going to block a CR? That's a different thing than not support. Voting no, or are you going to stop it?
But Perez, the other thing is you have to remember ICE and CBP are funded for the rest of this administration. They lost leverage on that. So what is their reason to shut down the government? I'm not saying a shutdown is not going to happen. I think it's completely plausible that a shutdown happens. And I don't think I think we're in a situation with government funding where incentives don't matter. Like, you just might want to muck up the works, and you might want to cause crisis, and you might think it benefits you, if Republicans say something silly or impolitic or whatever. But I do think it's interesting that he's going to vote for a clean CR next week. He's happy with that. And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I thought all of that was super interesting. Let's shift to immigration. Obviously, another issue where HFC, the speaker promised to vote to Chip Roy. They're focused on it. Nick, what was your takeaway from where his posture was?
It was so interesting to me, as we talked a little bit before, that he wanted a border bill, like no interior enforcement. You get out of all the thorny issues there around ICE and everything. It's just, presumably plussing up CBP and, probably putting stuff towards like a border wall and the like, which is kind of what Chip Roy and those guys have been pushing for. But even then, it's like not as hard of a line in the sand as we've seen from like previous HFC chairs.
But Chip's bill, I just looked at it the other day when this came up. Chip's bill did include, correct me if I'm wrong, Chip, I'm sure you will in the hall, but his bill did include interior enforcement. I think it did include stuff on detention facilities. It included, it also included, I don't know if you consider this interior enforcement, but changes to asylum law, which is not border security. It is border policy. It's immigration policy. It's not security. And you have to just understand that this is not going to become law. I don't think it's not going to get through the Senate, especially in an election year. So,
but he was pretty, kind of pushed away the idea that moderates don't want to take this up.
Oh, border security. But can the Republicans win a border security messaging fight right now with what you mentioned, these tragic shootings, again, the second series of shootings involving, and then the Markway Mullen orders an end to traffic stops, and the next day Trump, under pressure from the MAGAs, says no, we're going to do traffic stops, we're going to keep going. I don't see how you can win I don't see how they can separate it. Like, there's no way. I mean, they were doing 2,000 arrests a day. Yeah. How are you going to separate that? So, for whether you support the policy or not, that's the issue. And you're not going to be, this is only border security. We're not talking about all those arrests and stuff.
Yeah, but
I don't think there's any way to get away from that.
The moderates, which is not many of them, it's, Lawler, Fitz, the guys from Pennsylvania, some of these other guys.
Susan Collins was.
Well, in the House I'm talking about, but they're just going to say, well, listen, we voted for HR 2 last year. It's the same stuff. Right.
Those guys will vote for it. Yeah. They would vote for a border specific bill. I don't think they'd have any problem. But I just think it's the messaging. It's a blurred line. Yeah.
Another thing I want to get to before we get to our last segment of the show is he gave Mike Johnson a pretty positive grade.
Shocking to me. And I'm not saying...
But Harris has been up in the ones who...
but he's led the charge on... I've watched him on the floor get very animated with Johnson. And I'm not saying I'm surprised because of any views about Mike Johnson. It's just, it's unusual to hear an HFC chair come out in favor of the speaker, no matter who it is.
I mean, he was pretty reckless saying, he's done it. He has a tough job.
Majority, but he said, his quote was, Johnson is a minority leader. I don't know. Which is what we've written about, and you've written on it. So,
Nick, what do you think? Does he want to be minority leader? Johnson?
It seems like he's not having a good time. I mean, every single story, every single profile we've read about him, and by all accounts of how his time as speaker has been, it's not fun. He has less family time. He has all these pressures within the fact that it's made even worse.
But also, to be a minority leader is like to go to work with knives in your backpack every day, and you are trying to be aggressive.
You mean as speaker?
Be
minority leader.
That is the easiest job in Washington.
Suited for
no. That's Jordan or somebody else's. We've written about Jordan or Scalise. Much easier. I would say that this is like the last speaker who enjoyed being speaker was Nancy Pelosi. And she may be the last speaker who ever enjoyed.
Liked it for like a couple months.
But I think he's right. I do think he's right, though, when he talked about, like, with redistricting, we're never going to have big majorities anymore. And I agree with the way the world has changed. I mean, their 250 seat majorities are gone. That ain't happening anymore.
Yeah. I mean, 2011, what was it? Is 247 or something like that?
I mean, so like those are gone, and but Pelosi enjoyed it. None of these Republican speakers have had a good time in my lifetime. I mean, all the rest of them, they've had a bad time. So,
all right, let's get to our last segment of the show here. What's not going to fly, Nick?
I think for me, it was Democratic unity this week on Israel. Like we saw, it was a remarkable thing to see, Catherine Clark vote for this Massey amendment on Israel, and Nancy Pelosi, along with, nearly half the caucus, on something that, we've covered plenty of things like this before. Democrats would, say this was just some sort of messaging bill, something that's never going to become law, and would discard it outright. But this was such a wedge issue in the caucus, and it will be for them if they're in the majority next year.
Oh, for sure. Press.
Shutdowns. God, I can't. An election, a shutdown 5 weeks before an election is insane to me. It's insane. I don't see how, I just don't see how it happens. I don't see how anybody wins it. I hope it doesn't happen, but after what we've seen in this Congress, who the hell knows, right?
The speaker's going to put a stock trading ban for members of Congress on the floor next week. Well overdue. This is an issue that has huge support in the American public, but he's doing it in a way that is going to ensure it's going to fail. He's going to add, according to our sources, voter ID language to it. This is a carrot, I guess you could say, a cookie to the right, which wants voter ID attached to every bill under the sun, post offices, whatever. They'll take it. It's really a shame that on an issue that most members of Congress agree with, that there should be new restrictions on trading
way
stocks.
Overdue.
That they've just not done it.
God.
It's ridiculous.
Can't do it. All right, I'm going to go quick. We wrote about it this morning, but President Donald Trump going back to the well with the 2000 election being rigged.
2020,
but not 2000. Oh man,
a different contested election. Yeah, Ooh, they're all blood.
no, but I do think this is the last thing that Senate Republicans want to be talking about. This is the last thing that people want to go into the midterm talking about. They want to move forward. I think it makes it really tough.
John Thune said yesterday, I'm not going to get into that, but we do have an election this year in Georgia, which we hope we're going to win.
All right, we will leave it there. Nick, John, thank you so much for joining us. All right, Jake, that was a great episode. We had Mr. Harris, chair of the Freedom Caucus, Nick Wu, John Bresnahan, a ton to talk about.
Next week is going to stink, is what I want to talk about.
Oh, my goodness.
It's going to be a long week. It's going to be, they are doing a lot. I'm always of the mind that you can't overload. The place can only bear so much. But the NDAA budget resolution, CR, stock trading bill. I'm not doubting Mike Johnson. So don't tell me I'm doubting him. I'm just saying it's a lot to handle. I think they'll get it all done. I think it's going to be a tough week.
Make sure to like and subscribe on our YouTube channel because we are going to have a ton to talk about next week when we get to all of this, whether it happens or it doesn't happen. Thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it.
Have a great day, great weekend. Fish, Merriweather Post Pavilion this weekend. Let's get a Walfredo for old time's sake. Stay safe, everybody.